Good afternoon, everybody. This is the Ground Grown podcast. Today we're doing something very different. It's not our usual filler episode. It's also not our usual episode where we have guests. Today we're actually going to do a product review, the very first one. And we'll be starting you guys off with the Adidas, Adidas, whatever way you want to pronounce it. We'll be reviewing the Crazy Power TRs, a new product that they released, not necessarily designed for CrossFit. It is designed for a multitude of things, specifically and primarily for functional training and use in the gym. So let's see what it's about, right?
So, opening the box.
So you've got basketball players and football players on the paper. Don't know why, if they want to do this for the gym, but sure, right? Okay, slight bias because the colorway is exactly the same as Central Ground and the Ground Grown podcast, so automatically we say it's nice because of that. It looks fairly durable compared to a lot of available shoes these days, with a good amount of flex, I would say. It seems that it has like a mesh style finish at the top of it. It's slightly thicker, both in terms of the width, also in the height, than most of the hybrid shoes these days, which we'll find out later on if that's good or not. Smells like the factory. I think, right? And there's like a blue strip on the side. It has the traditional 3 stripes of Adidas, but it's not too obvious as well. The heel looks like it's somewhat more stable, I would say, or at least upon first impression it is. The tongue of the shoe is a little bit softer than most, or what is readily available. So like I mentioned earlier, it kind of looks durable. It looks a lot harder, which may or may not be good when we actually start using this, than most of the available, we can call them hybrid shoes for use in CrossFit and CrossFit training. Yeah.
I like it.
He likes it, right? Alright, so after some extensive trying of the shoe, we're now moving on to a segment where we discuss, real quickly review the different aspects of its performance. So I think the first one we did was running, and I have to say there's a lot of comfort in the heel, which is relatively hard to achieve in a hybrid shoe. The toe box is slightly wider than most of the other shoes. Now, it may or may not be good for you, depending on what your foot type is. If you've got narrow feet, I can see how this can be an issue. But for myself, who's a flat foot and I've got really wide feet, it's actually very good. If you look very closely and you compare it to a lot of available shoes for CrossFit training or just functional training out there, the heel is also relatively higher than the others. And this makes for in my honest opinion, a fairly decent running shoe. At first, since it's fairly new, it feels a little tough or a little harder. It comes with the durability, I would suppose. But I would say after maybe a few uses, running would actually be one of its strengths. And for the weightlifting segment, I think right now, among all the shoes that are commercially available to people who do CrossFit or people who do weightlifting, this is probably the best hybrid shoe that you can get. Simply because of the height of the heel to the ratio of it going down towards the midfoot and the front foot. It's basically like a fairly soft, somewhat snug weightlifting shoe that has more rubber components than it does, let's say, leather or wood components, which you will find in traditional weightlifting shoes. So I would say, compared to, like what I mentioned earlier, compared to what is readily available, this is by far the best one for weightlifting, if we're talking about that specifically. Alright, so here's the tricky part. We said that it was probably the best shoe for weightlifting. Now we talk about powerlifting. I feel that because of the height of the heel, this has a tendency to make you lean forward a little bit. And if you're familiar with deadlifts, you kind of want to have your heel a little bit closer to the ground, or ideally you want your heel about the same height as your front foot and your midfoot. That's why a lot of the the specialist powerlifters, they lift in their socks. So this may not be the optimal shoe currently for powerlifting. But if we do consider the two other movements in powerlifting, which is the bench press and the back squat, again, this shoe with its heel and its heel support has probably one of the best stabilities that you can get from a regular shoe. So for back squats, it's really optimal. And if you look at high-level powerlifting, they do wear weightlifting shoes, but this is more for standard than anything else, so that they have more attachment to the floor. So for bench pressing, I know shoes don't matter, but they're still fairly decent. And so the last part, the one that actually does not need your shoes the most, would be the gymnastics piece, right? But we'll just say we'll pop in some other things like burpees and other performance-based movements that you can put. But I would say, again, we revert back to its heel stability and its heel height compared to all these other performance shoes out there. And because of its height, pistol squats, shall we just say, consider that as one of the gymnastics movements, is fairly easy. In terms of its weight, I know it looks bulky, and because of its durability, it's probably one of the heavier shoes, but the weight is not that relative for you to perform poorly in things like pull-ups, handstand push-ups, or maybe even muscle-ups. Not like the shoe actually matters, but if a lot of people are thinking about the weight of the shoe, it's not that big of a factor. So for gymnastics, or at least general performance, I would rate it just to be about the same as everything else, just because it offers the same comfort without giving any extra advantage. Alright, and now the question in everybody's mind, which one should I get? Should I get the Crazy Power TR? Should I get the Nano? Should I get the Metcons? I would say if you're looking for a shoe that you want to have better performance in terms of weightlifting, the Crazy Power TR is an automatic answer for me as a yes. It has so much stability, especially if you're a flat foot like me, and if you want your toe box to be more comfortable, do that. Let's compare it real quickly to the Metcons. The Metcons have a more wide heel, and it has a tendency to come off sometimes, and that has been an issue reportedly multiple times before. The Nanos are on the more flat side. It offers more stability. That's okay, right? The Nanos are on the more flat side. They have lower clearance towards the floor, so typically you feel a little bit more attachment towards the floor. So I'll just use certain points of performances that you can use to analyze. Weightlifting, Crazy Power TRs win. Powerlifting, Nanos win. Maybe running, I would say the Metcons would be of maybe a slight advantage just because of the softness of the shoe in general. But overall, in terms of performance, they're all kind of equally scoring at this current moment. And now let's talk about the price real quickly. So the SRP currently right now sits at $6,595. You can get it at multiple locations or from multiple sources. We'll tell you how to get them in a bit. And if you're looking at the price point difference compared to the Nanos, which are sitting at closer to $7,000, and the new Metcon 3s, which are well above that, or even closer to the $8,000, if you are looking at the DSX or the Flyknit version, this Crazy Power TRs of Adidas is definitely on the lower price range, but gives more, about the same or even more, I would say, durability. So if you're looking at a bang for the buck, the Crazy Power TRs may just have the competitive edge between the three shoes right now. And so our final verdict on the Crazy Power Adidas TRs, or Adidas Crazy Power TRs, is if we were to score it based on a few measurements. Let's just say performance is our optimal way of rating, and then followed by aesthetic, and then everything else. We're gonna give it a good 8 out of 10 or 8.5 out of 10. Alright, and in case you were wondering how you can get the shoe, right now it is available at Out of the Box. You may find them on Facebook and Instagram. Just look for Out of the Box Co. or Out of the Box Company. You can message them, you can go to their stores. Currently they have a store in Makati, and their home base is in Mandaluyong. Mandaluyong, right? Mandaluyong. Yeah, so go ahead and check them out, check their website out, check their Facebook and Instagram out. You can send your orders there, and we promise you the deliveries are really fast. You give them one text, one email, one message, and they'll send it to you within 1 hour. Again, the SRP is $6,595 for the Adidas Crazy Power TRs. And that's pretty much it for our first ever product review, again, of the Adidas Crazy Power TRs. This has been the Ground Grown Podcast. Please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, also our SoundCloud, and we are also on iTunes. So please go ahead and look for us, pop us a listen. Maybe for this one, you need to watch it on YouTube just because so you can see how the shoe actually performs, right? Also follow us on Instagram and like our page on Facebook. This is the Ground Grown Podcast. My name is Job.
I'm Big Boy.
And we'll see you next week. Peace. Good afternoon, everybody. This is the Ground Grown Podcast. Today we're doing something very different. It's not our usual filler episode. It's also not our usual episode where we have guests. Today we're actually going to do a product review, the very first one. And we'll be starting you guys off with the Adidas